Hello and welcome to our Chapter 2. We're going to start learning a little bit about early atomic theory. So this isn't necessarily the atomic theory that we know and love now, but this should give you some background on how we got there. And along the way, we've been given some very important tools, like, for example, the periodic table, that we now know and love and use on a daily basis. So how did we get here? Well, a long time ago, everybody kind of started to try and describe our world. We're going to take a look at some of the early scientists here that helped start to develop some of the early concepts of what is matter. So from the very beginning of time, man has tried to understand and describe his world. And we've done this in a variety of different ways. During the course of this chapter, we're going to be talking about two intertwined histories. Sometimes the lines between them get a little bit blurred. So first, we're really going to kind of talk about atomic theory, and then through understanding more about atomic theory, we'll understand a little bit better about why the periodic table looks the way it does and kind of how that came to be as well. So first, let's start off with just plain early atomic theory. And a really great place to start is way back in the Dark Ages with the Greeks, specifically with a scientist, or I should say really a philosopher. Back in very ancient times, we thought that the earth was made of four principal elements: air, fire, earth, water, and combinations of those gave you different types of sensations. It actually wasn't until about 400 BC that somebody decided to finally break that trend. There was a philosopher by the name of Democritus, and he came up with this kind of crazy idea of atomos. That's a Greek word that means indivisible or uncuttable. And his idea was essentially this: there must be a particle that, if I say take an apple and I cut it in half enough times, eventually I'm going to hit a piece of apple that I can no longer cut in half anymore. And that smallest piece is what essentially is making up the apple. And we're just going to call that atomos. Now, he believed that all matter, everything around us, was made of these little atomoses, and kind of came up with the first concept drawing of what that might look like. Now, a whole bunch of different people have kind of demonstrated this in a lot of different ways, but the most concise is simply a bowling ball. A lot of people do call this the bowling ball model of the atom, just simply a small mass of material. Now, he did go on to describe this much differently, creating little different pieces on this to describe why some matter might be slippery, some is sticky, some is bendy, some is not, it's really brittle, but we can get into that in a little while. I think it's also really important as we talk about these different scientists to make sure that we kind of keep coming back to them and put these things into a historical perspective. So we'll kind of come back to a timeline over and over again. So the first guy that populates our timeline is Democritus, around 400 BC. His biggest contribution to the overall atomic theory was that all things are made of some smallest piece that is now uncuttable or indivisible. He called this small indivisible particle atomos.